This programme is sponsored by Ava Media. Brilliant quality for a great price. Welcome to the second of 3 testing roundups for IFMC. Today we're going to look back at the Estoril test, what kicked off, what developments happened there, and so on and so forth. So without further ado, let's get into the second testing roundup.
Here we go.
Coming up on today's roundup, we're going to be looking back at the Estoril test to see what happened, who was quickest in all 4 days, what kicked off, and whether the teams felt it was positive or negative in terms of development. We're also going to be looking at the Catalonia track, which is the third and final venue for the testing period. It's a very different track and is very quick indeed, one last push before the Australian Grand Prix. We'll also be interviewing the teams to see how Estoril went for them, whether it was an improvement from Jerez or a downgrade. Plus, we'll also get reactions to why Thomas Cook Sport and Maureen Jones Racing sacked Carlos Sainz Jr. and Adrian Sutil days after testing, replacing them with 2 former Team Oscar drivers. So welcome to the second testing roundup of IFMC. A lot of things happened in Estoril, especially since the pack got really close and teams started to improve due to updates. So, while we're on the subject, for those of you who did not see the live streams for Estoril, here is a roundup of the testing that happened during the 4 days of Estoril. Day 1 of Estoril was underway in the usual fashion. There was no rain in sight and it wasn't going to rain for the whole weekend. So it meant we were able to see the drivers push their cars to the limit and set competitive lap times. Like day 4 of Jerez, the Etiads made it 1 and 2, but because of Alonso's absence, it was test driver Stoffel Vandoorne who was able to get to the top of the timing sheets ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Lewis Hamilton could only manage 4th in the Thomas Cook car, whilst the AMP cars were happy with 5th and 6th, Verline in front of Hulkenberg. The Scuderia Ferraris had also bought an upgrade as well, and it was even happy for Ocon as he was able to get into the top 10 for the first time in testing. Clearly James Wells's words clearly got to his head and made him go a little quicker. The happiest of the bunch though was Nico Rosberg. He was able to get his Maureen Jones Racing car into 3rd position, despite the fact that this was only the team's 2nd testing appearance, and to make it even more happier for them, Sutil managed to get into 7th. Day 2 saw Fernando Alonso get into the Etihad and he was able to repeat what he could in day 4 of Jerez and was able to go fastest of everybody by 3 tenths ahead of test driver teammate Stoffel Vandoorne. Sebastian Vettel got into his Scuderia car for the first time in Estoril and was able to get into a 4th thanks to some big improvements from the team, with Nico Rosberg behind him and Salvador Duran as well. Pascal Verline felt he was impressed with the car in the AMP and managed to get into 3rd position. Heifeld was in 10th with Duran 6th. Kobayashi on the other hand in the other Maureen Jones Racing car could only manage 12th, so way off the pace from his teammate Nico Rosberg. Day 3 saw Fernando Alonso once again at the top of the timing sheet. Only this time the Etiads had some competition, as Lewis Hamilton was able to split Alonso and Bottas to 2nd. Bottas settling for 3rd unfortunately, but only 800ths behind Hamilton. Sebastian Vettel was able to get another 4th place in the Scuderia and Rosberg got another 5th, whilst Duran got another 6th in the SIC. The AMPs on the other hand were struggling, they could only manage 7th and 8th with Hulkenberg ahead of Mardenborough. It didn't help when Nico Rosberg had a fiery engine on day 3, at 10 minutes after Jenson Button had transmission problems. Ocon got another top 10, despite the fact that he wasn't able to do it in D2. He was able to get into 10th behind Carlos Sainz. Adrian Sutter was hoping that Orange Orange Racing would be lenient towards them, as he could only manage 11th outside the top 10. Day 4 saw the top 4 repeat itself from Day 3, with Alonso at the top, Hamilton splitting the two Etiads and Vettel getting to 4th. We also saw Mark Webber return to the IFMC with Thomas Cook Sport after Carlos Sainz was dropped from the team, more on that later. Sergio Perez impressed the Eldorado team boss after so many technical problems from Day 3 and Day 4, first the Day 3 one with an engine failure and crashing with Zol Lambert towards the end. He was able to get his Eldorado car into 6th position. His teammate on the other hand couldn't fare any better thanks to an engine problem that he had towards the back straight. Once again the AMPs were struggling and could only manage 7th and 8th. Webber on his return could only manage 5th, whilst Kobayashi was able to get into the top 10 from Orange Orange Racing. Unfortunately for Adrian Sutter, who could only manage 13th, was not able to repeat that, and unfortunately ended up losing his seat to Juan Pablo Montoya. More on that later.
Yes, you could say that Hamilton has started to split us, but what you have to remember is the fact that Fernando was 5 tenths up on there was 5 tenths between Fernando and Lewis on Monday, and on Sunday there was 4 tenths as well. There's still a significant gap. He split Valtteri. He was having some difficulty in his car, but you know, once he finally gets that pace back, he should be okay. Stoffel was absolutely fantastic. You know, again, 1-2 with Stoffel when he was there. You know, was top on Friday, and I think he was second to Alonso on the Saturday. So yeah, Valtteri knows what he needs to do. We've had a word. We've looked at the way things are going. It wasn't his best performance, we know, but we'll be looking forward to this weekend's testing session. We've got some updates coming that will hopefully improve us. If not, we can always revert back to our car. We know we're currently got the quickest package and quickest engine. Overall, we're the quickest car on the grid, but we're looking forward to next weekend's test. And obviously, once that then concludes and we know what we're doing, we'll be looking forward to the start of the season, which hopefully can be as positive as our pre-season has gone so far.
I think we've gone pretty well. You know, I think we got some fantastic results under our belt. We've really looked like we're a competitive car. We're looking at coming through testing with at least the 3rd or 4th fastest car, which is good. The Audi is looking competitive, slightly reliable. You know, we haven't had any main concerns. So yeah, thoroughly positive testing session for us.
Yeah, Estoril went better than expected on day 3 and 4, both 2 days in a row actually. We were able to get Hamilton in front of Bottas on both days, which is a good positive for things to come. However, I know a lot of teams are updating for Catalonia, so we're not updating for Catalonia as such. We're updating primarily for Australia, so don't be surprised if you see us drop down the field just a bit.
It's a concern looking at the teams around us and seeing that, you know, that no one else is really necessarily having an issue with their engine. I know that, you know, fellow Audi engine users aren't experiencing these issues, but there's something we can iron out and something we can look to improve upon in the coming testing sessions.
We felt that the livery we had didn't really show off the detailing that was needed. You know, the way the livery was made wasn't as detailed as we thought it would be in the finished product. So what we decided to do is we decided to showcase sponsors more by using something that focuses a little bit more on their design. We've had a look at how we feel like the car needs to look. So we're going for a more streamlined design. We don't want to give too much away, whether or not it will be released after that. But we've still got the white and gold design. Our colours are still the same. It's still the same Etihad. We're just looking at it as a fresh livery for a fresh new unit. So it's a fresh start and a lot more positive things to come, hopefully, throughout the remainder of the season.
Pascal looks like he's settled in very well. He's looked like he's strong. He's comfortable with the car. We saw some good pace in the wet in Jerez, I believe. Hulkenberg, he's taking a little bit longer to settle in, but it'll come. He's got experience. He's a strong driver, and he's proven at this level. Hence why we signed him for our team. It's very tough to say who's going to be, first on the grid in Melbourne. It's very tough to see who's going to be a challenger for a race win. It's really early days, but considering the consistency of, the Etihad cars, the Thomas Cooks look particularly strong, and we look very strong. So it's really tough to pick, and it all depends on whether or not certain teams bring certain upgrades to the first round, to the second round, and even on that day there are many variables. Will there be rain? Will there be, a safety car? Will there be a red flag? All that stuff. So it's really difficult to sort of say who's a favourite at this stage, but my money is on the factory teams, cars such as the BMW engine powered and Audi powered cars. They do look very strong compared to some of the middling teams. But it's very tough to pick someone who's a favourite. But Thomas Cook are looking quite strong, as are Etihad. So it's between those two.
Since William Neller made an interview with us for the first time, we also asked him about his reaction to Team Oscar pulling out in a rev, as he is close friends with the team boss of that team, Joshua Anderson.
I know Josh quite well. We've been friends for quite a while. I've done various things with him, know him quite well. And admittedly, it was a shock to see them at the top so quickly and by such a large margin. 1 second ahead of the nearest challenger. That's quite a margin, it's quite a gap. I had my thoughts on it. I had my opinions on the development of that engine. Obviously was very quick and a bit sudden, considering they're not using a factory team. But I never really expected such a quick reaction of that, of having to actually leave and quitting like that. It was quite a shock and a shame, really, because we all want competition, we all want to win, we all want to fight for a win. It provided a benchmark for many of the teams, and to see him go is a bit of a shame. And I know he's a very competent bloke. He could have run that team fantastically well, and it's a shame to see him go, so one of his talents. So it was one of initial shock, but it was his decision, and at the end of the day, we can't really sway the decisions of other drivers, other teams. It's their affairs and not ours.
So that's what happened in Estoril with mad day in day 3. So recently, you may have heard in the news, but 2 teams recently dropped their drivers. Thomas Cook Sport dropping Carlos Sainz Jr. after initially signing him on a 5-season deal, and Orange Racing dropping Adrian Sutil. Both of them have dropped them for 2 former Team Oscar drivers, Thomas Cook Sport getting Mark Webber, and Orange Racing getting Juan Pablo Montoya in Catalonia. You'll see him in the car during the Circuit de Catalunya on Friday. So, as usual, like with the Team Oscar situation, we wanted to know why it was. So, here's some interviews with Robert Hunter, William Neller and Oliver Glazebrook. Sadly, Matthew Orange couldn't be here to interview the reason why he dropped Adrian Sutil for Juan Pablo Montoya. So, listen up folks, and make your verdict in the comments. The news between the end of day 3 till the end of day 4 came from 2 teams, Thomas Cook Sport and Orange Racing. They recently announced that Thomas Cook Sport would be dropping Carlos Sainz Jr. and Orange Racing would be dropping Adrian Sutil, both of them dropping him for Team Oscar drivers. Thomas Cook Sport getting Mark Webber, whilst Orange Racing at Catalunya will be getting Juan Pablo Montoya. We wanted to know why this was, after when Robert Hunter, the Thomas Cook Sport team, initially signed Carlos Sainz to a 5-season deal. We wanted to also see why Matthew Orange dropped Adrian Sutil at Orange Racing for Juan Pablo Montoya. Unfortunately, Matthew Orange couldn't be able to interview with us about his reasons. However, we were able to get Robert Hunter to explain why he dropped Carlos Sainz Jr. He did feel some regret though about the decision, but felt there was nothing he could do to rectify the issue.
Well, the program I had with Carlos was that he would be number 2 to Hamilton, and that I'd want him not to be miles off Hamilton, be close to him, but not be like, you know what I mean, like not too far back. What he's seen in his days in the car is that he's not being quick, he's not being competitive. And then the icing on the cake was him being behind my test driver Sirotkin, which I never wanted to happen. I said he needed to improve after Jerez, and I said in the interview after Jerez, Sainz will need to improve, and I'm sure he'll bounce back for Estoril. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to improve that I wanted him to, so I had to replace him and get Mark in. I didn't want to do it. It wasn't. I didn't personally. I wanted to keep my team stable and have a lot of team stability. But at the time, and what was going on with my team, because we were quite competitive, to have one driver challenging for a podium, like getting 3rd or 2nd, and having another one 10th, 11th, is just really not good. And I think it'd be better for the team to know where we are in terms of the standings. If I replace Sainz and put a better one in, it's not professional, and I should have handled it in a better way. Now I know from this experience to handle it in a different way. It was a tough one because like Orange Racing has got Montoya, Villeneuve was also there, and Webber was there obviously. Oscar who had gone had some good drivers, and if I was going to get rid of the Sainz, I was going to bring one of those for him. And the reason why I brought Mark in, because he will bring a lot of experience of being technically a number 2 driver. I mean, he always did it for Vettel at Red Bull, and I think for the start of the season, I think he might be a number 2 driver, like in class as a number 2 driver, because I don't think he's as good as Hamilton. But coming from day 4, he was a lot closer to Hamilton than what Sainz has been all testing, which was he was pretty much the highest. He was higher than what Sainz has ever been, I believe, getting 5th place, and Hamilton splitting the FIADs, which I think that pretty much puts it down that we're the 2nd quickest team from Estoril. Catalonia, things will change. Catalonia is a different track. Same with Australia. I think the only thing that I know for sure, or I don't know for sure, that I could suspect for sure for Australia is that the team that will probably win the race will be Etihad. It'll probably be Alonso wins the race. I'm still not letting that. I'm still keeping that prediction from Jerez that Etihad are still the favourites after they look good. Their engine looks good. Their chassis looks good. We're not too far. We're still half a second behind, which is still quite far.
AMP team boss William Neller felt that what happened has happened, and that's racing.
I think it's always sad when a team, has to resort to sacking their driver. It's always sad to see someone with talent go. I know Carlos Sainz has got, loads of potential. I know he's been particularly quick in the car. It's a bit of a shock to see him go, see him be sacked. But that's racing. That is racing. And then if you've got someone who can take his place, and you've got someone who can race the car quickly and can do a job for you, then sometimes these decisions have to be made, and that is the choice of the team principals. It's the choice of the team. My opinion on it is I've signed a driver for a season. I'd like him to see it out if possible, but that's my opinion. But yeah, it's sad to see him go. They will be missed.
One team that was not happy with how this was conducted was Etihad Racing team boss Oliver Glazebrook. He felt that the way that the teams have handled it was unprofessional, and felt that they should have gave the two of them more time, as it was only testing and it wasn't into the new season yet.
I don't think we can at this current point in time really judge whether or not Montoya and Webber are going to make impacts at their team. A big part of the reason they were so quick in their previous employment was purely down to the car. Webber was a part of the Monday testing and was slower than both Valtteri and Fernando. And Montoya, the Lamborghini, the Orange Racing with the Lamborghini engine, is not exactly the quickest of packages ever. So unless there's miracles going to happen, I don't exactly think either of them are going to be overly gracious, not gracious, overly flamboyant in the way they're going to produce performances. It's not going to be as amazing as people have said. The fact they've sacked Suttle and Sainz, I think, very disrespectful to the drivers. I think, you've signed them for a reason, especially Morin Jones Racing. I mean, he had the opportunity to sign Montoya in the first place, didn't do so, decided to go for Suttle, then decides to sack the man. I mean, it's not exactly the most professional way to go about things. Exactly the same with Thomas Cook. First things first. Another airline comes in and tries to spoil our thunder and join us in the industry, and now they're they're sacking one of their drivers for another man. I think it's incredibly unprofessional. It's not exactly mature from either of the team bosses. I think you've got to stick with your drivers. And I mean, Valtteri, just because Valtteri sat in third doesn't mean we're going to sack him and bring Stoffel up. It's not how you do things. You give people time to grow. Maybe that track wasn't theirs. I mean, literally 3 races in, and Suttle's lost his. Three races into the weekend, and Sainz has lost his place. I mean, you can't really compare Carlos Sainz to Lewis Hamilton at that team, because Hamilton's a 3-time world champion and Carlos Sainz has only just had his first season in Formula 1. So again, the immaturity, the unprofessionalism, it's not nice to see. I, for one, can confirm at this moment Bottas and Alonso will see out the full season. Stoffel Van Dorn will remain at the GP2 team, and Kevin Magnussen and Jolyon Palmer will be at our young drivers' performance centre down at the GP2 ranks and remain there. And we want to grow. We want to build our team up. And I think it's very short-sighted to sack a driver very early on in the season, especially when they haven't exactly had a chance to perform and show what they can do.
Opinions have been made about their decision, and to be honest with you, I'm a bit in the middle about this decision. But like I said with Team Oscar, what's happened has happened. Unfortunately, we do not know if Carlos Sainz Jr. or Adrian Sutter will get a chance at another team in the future. I just hope they do, because we do want to see them race. It's such a shame that after a few tests, they've been dropped from both of their teams respectively. But let's hope that Mark Webber and Juan Pablo Montoya get to shine like they did with Team Oscar. Whether that will be the case, like Oliver Glazebrook said, that might not happen, we'll have to wait and see. Besides, we'll wait till the Catalonia test to find out. I mean, we've seen in Estoril a glimpse of Mark Webber, but we didn't get the full picture. Maybe Catalonia will get to see what they're really like in the different teams that are behind the Etiads. So there you go, they are the reasons why they dropped. I'll leave your thoughts down in the comment section below about their decisions. Now, we're nearly coming to the end of this roundup, but before we go, like we did with the Jerez roundup, we're going to be showing you what it's like around the Catalonia track. Pay attention people, as it is a completely different track to Estoril. We'll be using the old version that was used between the years of 1995 to 2003. I accidentally said 1991 to 2003 in the live streams, but now I've got my facts straight. So, let's see what this track is really like, and also see a lap of the track. The Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya is a very historic track which this year will play host to its 25th race, hosting the Spanish Grand Prix. Quite an achievement, I know. God, how time flies by. This track has produced a lot of history over the years, but only 3 come into mind. One of them being the 1991 race, which was actually the first Spanish Grand Prix at the Circuit de Catalunya as it was back then, when Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna went down the pit straight wheel to wheel with sparks coming out the back of each other's cars, with Red 5 eventually taking the lead into turn 1 and eventually going on to win the race. The other one that springs to mind is the 1994 race, which saw Damon Hill take Williams' first win of the season after a terrible time for the team after Ayrton Senna's death at the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix, which was 2 races after that tragic weekend. And the other one that springs to mind is the 1996 race, which saw Michael Schumacher take his first ever win for Ferrari after some brilliant overtaking in appalling conditions. That would be Michael's first of 3 victories that he would take for Ferrari in 1996. The track has changed a lot over the years, but for the benefit of testing and the fact that we're going to be using this configuration in the season itself for round 7, we'll be using the track configuration that was used between the years of 1995 to 2003, so the layout that is currently being used for MotoGP for its Catalan GP race. The one that also misses out that hairpin down at turn 9 and the chicane that leads to the pit straight. Let's have a look at a lap then of the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya with the Thomas Cook Sport Audi of Sergei Sirotkin coming down the pit straight, and he starts lap now. Down the pit straight he goes. It's a very long pit straight indeed as it goes downhill for most of it. He will then approach turn 1, braking just halfway after the 100 meter board, and then he'll tap the brakes again through turn 2 to make sure he doesn't understeer off into the gravel. Then nearly flat out through turn 3 using a little bit of lift of acceleration, then using a tighter exit through the exit of turn 3, and then approaching turn 4 as he brakes just after the 100 meter board on the left. Then he'll go flat out through the rest of the corner. You only need to brake for the beginning of it, but then it's flat out for the rest of the way. Now through the tricky turn 5, it's easy to wheel spin the rear end and lose the back end going out of this corner. Now down the hill towards this left-hander, which is not classed as a corner on this track. Now through the very fast turn 6 and 7, average speed through turn 6, and then flat out through turn 7. Then a tap of the brakes through Casa, and then he'll accelerate out of this corner towards the back straight. Now approaching the turn 9, which is the long left-hander, which is Repsol, and then turn 10, which is the rest of that left-hander. So through turn 9, which is Repsol, and then through turn 10, this bit, which is the rest of the corner. Now through turn 11, the third to last corner, average speed again, and then he'll accelerate towards the end of that corner, and then he'll go flat out through the second to last corner, and then a tap of the brakes on towards the final corner, and then he'll come back down the pit straight to start another lap, and that is the lap of the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, a very interesting track indeed. So that's what the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya track is looking like. Hopefully it will be a great final test, a big bang before the new season starts. Well, that's just about it then for this Estoril roundup, but before we go, let's have a look at the testing times then for the Circuit de Catalunya. They're very similar in terms of day 3, day 4 and day 2, day 3, day 4, but for day 1 it's different. It is actually going to be on at 5:30 rather than 5 PM. It is going to be half an hour later. Now the reason for this is due to other things that are going on in my college. So that is just about it then for this testing period. If you want to catch those testings live, then please follow the IFMC Championship Twitch channel to catch them all live. Link will be down in the description. Please go and follow. But until then guys, that is just about it for this roundup. So thank you very much for watching. I've been JWF1, and I'll see you for the final testing roundup, which will be in Catalunya. Until then, I've been JWF1, and thanks for watching. Take care. This program is sponsored by Ava Media. Brilliant quality for a great price.